My name is Jasmine Igneski. I'm Vice President of Policy, Sustainability, and GR at Parkland. If you don't recognize Parkland's name, you'll certainly recognize some of our brands. Chevron, On the Run, M&M Meat Market, Columbia Fuels, just to name a few. We operate in 25 countries, Canada, the US, Caribbean, South Central America. We're a leading convenience store operator, independent supplier of fuel, marketer of fuel, and one of our key things that we're really, as the purpose of Parkland, is to power journeys of our customers, powering their journeys today, but also thinking about the future and making innovative investments to protect our tomorrow. For example, last year we launched the largest network of ultra-fast EV chargers in this beautiful province of BC, something that we're very proud about. We have a refinery in Burnaby that's very key to BC's infrastructure. We supply 25% of BC's transportation fuel and 30% of the fuel at YVR. We were the first facility in North America to co-process, which means using biofeedstocks like canola and tallow, and co-processing them with conventional crude, and the existing fuel coming out of that is 1/8 the carbon intensity of conventional fuels. It's pretty exciting in terms of sustainability of the transportation sector. One thing that we understand this energy transition needs is collaboration and strong partnerships. One of our partnerships that we're very proud of is working very closely with BC Hydro. So when I was asked to introduce our next speaker, I really jumped at the opportunity. As many of you know, BC Hydro is a Crown corporation. They generate and deliver electricity to 95% of BC's population, serve over 5 million people. Their electricity is generated from 98% clean renewable resources. With the leadership of Chris and his team, we know BC Hydro is going to play a very important role in BC's energy transition, helping to create a cleaner and more sustainable future. So without further ado, it's my privilege to welcome the President and CEO of BC Hydro, Chris O'Reilly.
Well, thanks so much, Jasmine, and we really value our relationship with Parkland, so great that you were able to introduce me there. I just want to reflect on the video we just watched by Rio Tinto and Cheslata, and I want to acknowledge we have our own version of that story at BC Hydro with the creation of the Williston Dam and the impact that had on the Sikadene people and the Quadacha people, and they went through a similar experience of being dislocated and torn really from their land and community. And a tremendous amount of work has gone on over the years to try and make up for that. There was a financial settlements done in 2008 and 2009, and lots of work on procurement and coordination but what I don't think we've been able to achieve is ever say that we've got ourselves in the same boat. And so I really want to salute Rio Tinto and the Cheslata for that just tremendous example of reconciliation. I think it's something we should all take away and reflect on, and I certainly will do that. I want to start by thanking the Clic-Claytonais for welcoming us onto their territory for this important gathering, and we appreciate the long-standing support that you've shown for the BC Natural Resources Forum. I think the location of the forum on your territory in Prince George in the north, and dare I say not in Vancouver, is an essential element of its continued success. So thank you to the Chief and Council and the elders for such a generous welcome here on your territory. At BC Hydro, we sometimes refer to our job as keeping the lights on. That's how we talk about it colloquially in the company, and that's really shorthand for all the tremendous work that goes on to maintain the continual flow of power, to restore it when necessary. And it's a massive job, and I'm continually amazed in my role, humbled really at the commitment of our employees, especially our frontline employees that you see out on the lines, often in just terrible, terrible conditions and deep into the night to get power back on for our customers. Part of the keeping the lights on is reinvesting in our system. And we've had a long-standing commitment going back to the early zeros of reinvesting in the company, making sure that the assets are safe and reliable and able to carry on. We've, in the last 5 years, brought into service $4 billion worth of assets all over the province, both to ensure continued reliability and meet growing loads. This includes projects like the Peace Region Electricity Supply Project, which we did in partnership with the federal government. We got a good grant from them, and that increased capacity of the transmission system into the South Peace area, and that really enabled the further electrification of many of the oil and gas producing customers that are represented here in the room. But of course, our job goes well beyond keeping the lights on, and that's especially true today given the twin imperatives we have around climate action and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. At the dawn of 2023, our world faces a climate crisis. And here in BC, we're experiencing more extreme weather. We feel this very directly at BC Hydro in the form of more frequent storms, these alternating periods of extreme drought and then intense flooding, forest fires that have gotten worse and worse, damage to our forests and rivers and the biodiversity that we rely on. So whereas we once talked about the effects of climate change, showing up in 2050 or 2100, we all now know that those alarming changes are occurring today. So it's critical that we as a society meet our emissions reductions targets as those are laid out in the Clean BC plan. Here in BC, we are fortunate to have a renewable power system, one that is 98% clean, and that makes us a leader in Western North America. Yet less than 20% of the total energy that we use in the province comes in the form of this clean electricity. There's another 10% or so from biomass, which we would call renewable. The remaining 70% comes from fossil fuels, and that's something that absolutely needs to change. And the Clean BC plan lays out how we intend to do this. And at BC Hydro, we have a significant role to play under Clean BC through our electrification plan. And I do want to say parenthetically that electrification, while it's an important part of the Clean BC plan, is only one of the pathways or actions in the plan that need to be engaged to deliver on these emission targets. And the Clean BC plan calls for our province to be more energy efficient, certainly in buildings, to increase the use of biofuels and renewable natural gas, to reduce methane emissions in industry, to implement a hydrogen strategy, to pursue negative emissions technologies, and more. And we need progress in all of these areas and across our entire society to meet these emissions targets and to achieve the goals we've set for ourselves. And we will not be able to get there relying on electricity alone. So I do want to talk briefly about our electrification plan. So we introduced it in 2021, September. It was announced by Premier Horgan and Minister Ralston. We are in the first year of a 5-year plan. It's a $260 million plan, including programs and incentives and rate options to help our customers really make different decisions about the use of energy and using our clean electricity in place of fossil fuels. We know it's just a start. It's very much the first 5-year plan, and I expect very, very shortly, given our planning cycles, we'll be developing the next iteration of the plan. We know our customers are, many of whom in the room today, customers like Parkland for sure, are committed to the plan and Clean BC plan and our electrification plan. And we know 3/4 of our 25 largest customers, the leaders in British Columbia, corporate British Columbia, have aggressive ESG goals, including climate action goals. And so we're working with many of our customers, many of you who are in the room today, to achieve your goals through electrification. And I want to say I really appreciate the collaboration, the willingness to work with us, and the willingness to innovate, where there's a just tremendous interest in looking at different ways to achieve these solutions. With the increased interest in electrification, many are asking if we have enough power, and I've been asked that a number of times through the course of the last few days. The short answer to that is yes, for now, and especially so with Site C coming on in the next year or so. The longer answer is yes, and we have a plan to acquire more energy as we need it, and that will be renewables, likely wind and solar, likely in the northeast, which is a tremendous wind resource, and that will be layered on our flexible hydro system. And we have time to do this, and we're closely monitoring the signposts of when we need to trigger those actions to move forward. I do want to highlight one particular challenge that we have and tell you what we're doing about it, and that is the challenge of getting more power west of Prince George out towards Terrace and beyond. And while we currently have enough transmission capacity to serve the existing and committed load in the North Coast, and we've got room to spare, we do have an unprecedented queue of potential customers that have applied for service, and these are mines and LNG projects, port facilities, and the like. Most of those projects have not yet committed to their own investments, nor have they committed to taking service from BC Hydro. And these are, this represents a challenge for us because linear infrastructure like transmission lines they're expensive projects, they're time-consuming projects, they have large impacts on the land and on the rights of First Nations across whose territories they go. And the timelines are often longer than the decision cycles in corporations. And recognizing these challenges, we work really closely with our customers. We collaborate on ways to move the projects forward, ways to find ways to meet their needs, whether we do that in stages and the like, and we're absolutely open to different approaches. So I want to talk about two specific actions we have on the North Coast. One is we're already moving forward on the Prince George to Terrace capacitor projects, and this is 3 capacitor stations that are being installed, and they effectively increase the throughput of the line. It's a 60% increase in the capacity, 500 megawatts using existing lines. The second action, which we are announcing today, so this is a new, is we are beginning a process to twin the 500 kV line from Prince George to Terrace. And we're just starting in on that process. We're going to have an expression of interest to gauge interest from customers who would like to participate in that and take part in it. And we are happy to be moving forward with this, and we look forward to engaging with everyone who's would be involved, including the First Nations, the communities, and of course the customers. And this is a really important infrastructure initiative for us. We all have a role to play in this room in energy transition, and it's a very significant change for us. It's something we as a society have gone through only about once in 100 years. And so we have a responsibility, I think, to recognize the challenge and really to work together to make sure it happens. We are committed to doing our part, continuing to deliver on our responsibility to provide clean electricity and to make sure we have the electricity available to support the growth of the province and the achievement of the Clean BC plan. And we will do that with our existing hydro system and by layering on wind and solar as we need it. We know our clean electricity will continue to be one of British Columbia's greatest advantages, and I hope that 20 years from now, when we're marking the 40th anniversary of the BC Natural Resources Forum, we'll be able to look back at this meeting and reflect on how much progress, how much has changed, and how much has changed in a good way. So we're looking forward to working with all of you and to make sure this vision happens, and we continue to have a prosperous, successful, and a tremendous province to all live in and collectively enjoy. So I will stop there and look forward to answering any of your questions. Thanks. Where are we going?
You're going to take a seat, right, please? You betcha. Chris O'Reilly, everyone, thank you. And the vote of optimism, Chris, is very appreciated. We can count on you to be here for the 40th anniversary BC Natural Resources Forum. And of course, Kevin Dobbin wouldn't miss it for anything. For sure, it's a pleasure to welcome to the stage Kendra Johnson, President and CEO of the Mining Association of British Columbia. And you two are going to spend about 10 minutes doing some questions, right, Kendra?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I will just note I am the President and CEO of the Association for Mineral Exploration. Michael, the President and CEO, will be up on stage next. So we'll welcome him when he comes up. Great speech. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I want to start actually with a little bit of reflection. You started off speaking about the Rio Tinto video and a little bit about reconciliation. The twinning of the line coming up, that's very exciting news, so congratulations, and thank you for picking this forum to announce that. I was also reflecting earlier on the Minister's mandate letter given the panel this morning, and one of the items in there talks about equity ownership of projects going forward. So given the new line, given some of the work, your commitment to reconciliation, can you talk a little bit about that direction and what your plans are in that way?
Yeah, thanks so much, Kendra. It's great to be here with you. So we've been working on our building relationships with First Nations going back 30 years. We started our first what we called an Aboriginal Relations Department in the early 90s and working hard to build relationships across the decades since. And I think it's something I'm really proud of the progress we've made, notwithstanding we always reflect on the work still to be done. And I think the idea of Indigenous equity participation in electricity infrastructure is an idea whose time has come. And there's some great examples of this happening in other parts of the country. Ontario has taken some good leadership. There's an example of a project in Alberta. I think that was a great leadership initiative. And we've certainly heard from First Nations here in BC about the importance of participating in the electricity and energy sector, and that's something we want to talk more about. And we see some opportunities here in the north, including an opportunity with this 500 kV line to try that out. So much more conversation to go, but really excited about the opportunity that represents.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that brings us all together in this room is that conversation and talking about equity partnership. And to me, it certainly seems like a bit of an underlying theme at the conference, not only this year, but in previous years as well. So, and really, before we jump into the Whova questions, there were some great questions here, and please, if you have other questions or want to vote on these, please do log in and submit those. But you also touched very briefly in your talk about Site C, and I think there's probably so much more to say on Site C. So I do want to just give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about what's going on at Site C right now and what that timeline looks like for later this year.
Yeah, thanks. It's going pretty well. So we're coming up on the 3-quarter mark of the project. Our official schedule has 2 years or 20 months till we get first power on the project. We do have a shot at getting first power the coming December, so this year, and that's lots of things have to go right for that to occur, but the team and the contractors are working really hard. The dam itself is almost done, about 90% complete by volume, and a lot of the work is starting to focus on the small bits, the wiring and the mechanical and piping and equipment and all that. So still have more than 5,000 employees working every month on the site, keeping people safe, doing some great work with our First Nations business partners there, and really proud of the Indigenous procurement that we've seen. But looking forward to getting it done, as you can appreciate. Pretty timely as well for our system. It was we had a really good winter peak this year with the cold weather in the south. Hit a new record, and it was pretty tight, particularly given the market conditions in the Pacific Northwest. So we're really looking forward to having the plant in service and being part of our system.
Absolutely, it's going to be a great accomplishment, and it's been a long time in the creation of it, from the idea all the way through to it being completed later this year. So congratulations, and early congratulations, but I have no doubt that will come to fruition. So let's move over to the Hoover questions, because this is where the audience mind is at. So let's talk a little bit about LNG and getting the transmission line built. What are your thoughts on that, and what will it take?
Yeah, well, I touched on it a bit. As I said, these long linear assets have challenges, and it really will take a partnership between BC Hydro governments, different levels of government, and the customers. So it's not just LNG Canada. There are mines that would like to locate out there beyond the ones that we're working with today. And there's port expansions. There's a whole range of customers that we could serve on the North Coast. And we really all have to work together to commit to the line, get going on the line, and work through the many issues that we know exist with a project of that scale. It's really you could think of it it's really a nation-building scale project when you think of the importance of the port in Prince Rupert and the corridor. It's really something that will require a lot of shoulders to lean into to make happen, and we're committed to doing our part with the other parties. Really excited to be moving forward.
Certainly, and a lot of shoulders requires a lot of people, and whether that's the port or whether that's Site C or the LNG line. Labor shortage has been another theme right across the last couple days, and again, I go back to that's something that we all share in this industry. Is the skills that are required, whether it's mining or forestry or hydro, it really doesn't matter. We all require the same people and the same skill set. So can you talk a little bit about what your labor market looks like right now, where your people are, and what kind of shortages you're facing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're certainly, as many of you, experiencing the strain of the labor market. A really good indication, if you've been tracking the percentage of BC labor on the Site C project. If you looked back 5 or 6 years, it was in the low 80s. It was like 82%. And if you look today, it's down around the 2/3 mark. And so what we've been doing on Site C is the contractors have been looking to the prairies and even to the East Coast. So we have planes come in every other week from across the country, bringing workers to work on our project. And I know that's a common theme for projects across BC. So notwithstanding that, we've been, through the project, working to build the labor force. Apprenticeships have been a big priority on the project. We've been working with colleges, trying to get more people attracted to that role. Trying to increase participation of Indigenous workers and women in non-traditional roles. We've had lots of women work on Site C, which is really exciting, and that's been a positive part of the project, but something we all have to keep at, and again, an opportunity for broader industry to come together to support the continual development of a labor supply here in BC.
Great, and I think we're actually at time, but that is a perfect note to leave it on, one of partnership and collaboration and working together, on whether that's industry to industry or whether that's industry to First Nation and First Nation government or provincial, federal government. That's a really important piece. So thank you so much for taking the time, and on behalf of
Thanks,
Century,
Kendra.
thank you for being
Great.
here. There's probably a thank you from everybody coming.
Kendra and Chris, thank you so much. And